Welcome to Knife Thoughts. This video is going to be a review of this knife, which is the Bestechman Mini Dundee by Ostap Design. So this is a knife that was sent to me by Bestechman, and it's one that I was interested in because I actually had seen the larger version of this, the normal Dundee. Thought it was a really kind of slender, kind of sleek looking design, and saw that this new version, this smaller version, was coming out in some really cool colors. So that was the first thing. I had a little bit of trouble deciding which color I wanted to go with, and there were some really cool other colors, like a kind of mint ice cream type color and some pink and just some really kind of unusual colors. And that's the first thing I told this directly to Bestechman is please keep that up. I think that you know, there's a lot of knife companies that are doing colorful knives now, but there's still just so many either black, tan, or green knives. I mean, everything comes in black, tan, and green, maybe blue, but there's very few knives that are coming in kind of really unique, bright colors like purple or pink or teal, and I really like it. I have a couple other knives in purple. So here's a Microtech Ultratech. Here is a Ray DT03, and I really like the purple kind of colorway. I think it's just fun, you know, very royal, right? If you look at history, purple was kind of a royal color, and I think that it remains a cool looking color. And I think that black and purple, like on this Mini Dundee, go really well together. So I did decide on the black and purple, but honestly, I think any of those other brighter colors would have been a great option also. Now, Bestech does such a great job of just making the knives. So, you know, they make a lot of knives on their own brands, Bestech and Bestechman, but they also do a lot of OEM knives. So some other knives that I'm planning on reviewing soon. This is the Glow Rhino Fermi, really well made knife. Bestech is the OEM on that, I believe. And then something like the Tatcom out the front knives I've been reviewing. These are made by Bestech. They just do a really great job. They make a really high quality knife, and that remains true on even their budget brand, which Bestechman is their budget brand. They do a really nice job of these. Now, I want to tell you, I took this knife along with a couple other D2 steel knives on a beach trip, and it wasn't really intentional. It was just that they were the knives that I had kind of on the docket to review. They just happened to all be D2, which is not the best steel for a beach day. So D2 is not stainless. It's technically a carbon steel. It is just below the amount of chromium to be considered a stainless steel, but it's not the most, you know, rust prone steel out there. But I do think that this coating helped. So to give you an example, I also took another D2 knife, the Ocaso Strategy. So here it is. And, you know, pretty much did the same thing. I was at the beach 2 days and had this one day and the Mini Dundee the other day. You can see that this one has some pepper spots, some kind of patina or rust areas there, whereas there really is none on the Mini Dundee. And I think that that's pretty much entirely because of the coating. The coating is really nice. It's a nice kind of matte coating, not super reflective, but also not super thick, just really nicely done. And I like D2. I think that D2 is a very familiar steel to me. It's a steel that's not that difficult to sharpen. It holds an edge pretty well. You know, for normal day-to-day use, it's probably stainless enough for me. And so it's just, you know, it's a fine steel. A lot of people kind of poo-poo stainless steel. It certainly isn't one of the higher end steel these days. It's not a super steel. But the fact that this is under $45, it's like a $43 knife, I think that D2 is a fine choice for this knife, particularly with the overall quality of the knife and with the fact that it has nice G10 handles. So speaking of, I talked about this is a really well-made knife. You can see it is very smooth, even again after having been in salt water and sand. I washed it out some, and it's very smooth, flips very easily. It came and remains nicely centered, and it locks up well. No forward and back play when locked, no side to side play even when unlocked. So it's a really well made knife. The design I also really like. Now this is a smaller knife than I typically like to carry for my modern knife, because I'm usually carrying a traditional knife also, something a little smaller and more friendly, less scary or whatever. I don't think that this is a scary looking tool, but some people apparently do. But I'm usually carrying a traditional knife for my smaller knife, so I do tend to like a larger knife for my modern knife. But that said, it is very in line with what I think most people consider to be a good EDC size. So here is the Civivi Elementum. You can see that they are very similar in size. Here is a little bit of an older EDC classic, the Spyderco Native 5. Again, very similar in length. The Spyderco is definitely taller, kind of a less slender profile, but very similar in length. And I think that it is what most people consider to be a good EDC size. Now, I like something a little bit more in the size of a Rat 1 or a Benchmade Griptilian, something like that. And you can see that the Mini Dundee is smaller than those. But I think it's a great size for most people. Now, as for the design, I think it's a really nice design. Like I said, it's kind of like a classic but slender design. So you can see it has what I would consider to be a clip point blade. It does have a straight area here on the spine and then goes downward. So I would consider it to be like a very long clip point. And it has a very long drawn swedge on that clip, which I think looks great, particularly with this fuller. So this is a fuller here that you can actually use somewhat to get into this knife. But for me, I can't really do it as a one-hand open, but you could use it as a two-hand open. So that again would, lend itself to this being a knife that's relatively friendly for maybe an office environment or something like that. You could open it with two hands using this almost like a long pull. But like I say, it is a classic long clip point. You've got some straight edge, a nice kind of, typical belly, and then a very usable tip. And the grind seems to be nicely done. It's not the thinnest ground knife out there, but it cuts well enough in your normal tasks. To be honest, most of what I use a knife for these days is cutting food into baby bite size, and this worked well for that, perfectly fine for that. Now the handle is kind of, Ostepel has a design language, I guess you could say, and this goes in line with that. It's got some straight edges with some beveling. It's got some kind of cutouts here, cutout on the back, which does kind of help with access to the flipper, which I think the flipper is done well. It is a nice angle to this flipper that makes it really, really easy to use. No issues there at all. And then a cutout here, which makes it easier to access the lock. I do like that. I don't really like when a knife doesn't have a cutout, and so it's kind of hard to get at the lock. So I like that this has that cutout. Also, being that it's smaller, you don't want to have any like hard bumps here, and it feels good in my hand. Even being a smaller knife, I really had no ergonomics issues with this knife. So I think it is a good design. I do also like the look of the pocket clip. It's not exactly like other pocket clips, the typical Civivi and things pocket clip. I think it looks pretty good, and with the spacing of those screws, I think you could probably use a different clip. I'll get the Elementum out again. Not sure, but you might be able to use a different clip on that. But I do like the look of this clip. So it's really well made. It's a nice little design. It really, what I told Bestech, the people at Bestech there, when I got this, is it really makes me want to try out the larger version. I haven't gotten a chance to yet, but it definitely makes me want to try it out. So a very cool knife in the Mini Dundee by Bestechman. And again, I think a really good value at $43. Tough to find knives under $50 that are well made like this anymore. You can do it. There are other options, but I think that it's relatively rare, and this is definitely a nice option at under $45. So thank you to the people of Bestech for sending this knife along. I really appreciate getting to check it out. I always enjoy checking their knives out. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click the bell, and select all so you know when I post new videos. Check out my website, knifethoughts.com, where I post articles on knives like this and knife related topics. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.